Yes, guys, I'm Si. It's Sunday night. Welcome to Cardiff City World. It is time for the Breakdown podcast and a bit of a mixed bag this evening. We're going to talk about Wales on Friday. We're going to talk about Wales game tomorrow. Also talk about a bit of a farce which happened with the under-21s. And, of course, we'll have a little discussion around the Cardiff City managerial situation. Just double checking the stream to make sure it's all up and running. Looks good. Wait for the latecomers, as always. If you can, though, guys, just while we wait for the latecomers and the notifications and stuff to go out, if you guys can please make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, Cardiff City World. Really helps a lot. Helps a lot if you drop a like, all that good stuff, and leave comments and stuff. I know there was a bit of an issue with Reese's audio last night. We are looking into it. We think it's the wireless headphones that he's using, so we're going to sort that out as soon as possible. It's the joys of the internet, but hopefully as things grow and continue to grow, we'll be able to get a nice little setup where we can do everything in person, or the majority of the stuff in person, ideally. So yes, indeed, it'll be good. But there's lots to talk about. Where do we start? I think we'll start on the subject that I'm probably going to spend the least amount of time on, but I'm equally probably the most pissed off about and the most annoyed about. So the Wales under-21 thing is what a shambles, what a shambles. I'm kind of basing a lot of the ins and outs of this from Martin Davis, who's posted in the Bluebirds development Facebook group. Go and have a look at that. It's a real good group. It's a new group. Looks at all the under-21s for Wales, for Cardiff, and the underage group. So if you want to kind of look towards the players for the future and stuff like that, it's a real good source of information. And Martin's really, really well tapped into that. And he's a good guy. So yeah, support that a lot. So I'm kind of getting a lot of this from sort of him in that group. There's a really good thread on there where he's posted. And look, it's the information which he sort of puts out is he's got from within the group as well. It's like someone who he trusts, but it's very, very problematic. Wales under-21s on the brink of history, and just like their opponents for Friday, brought in the more senior players who are on the brink of the first teams or the national teams, because this is an important game for both teams. And Wales are in a situation that through an admin error, I think it's 6 players couldn't play in total, including, Benjamin probably starts in goals, turns at centre-back, Owen Beck probably plays at left-back, Ruben Caldwell will play at the 10, and that's just the bare minimum, really. And if you look through the 21s games, Ruben's been super influential in that team, whereas their opponents were able to play their more senior players because they didn't have that admin issue. It seems to have been some sort of issue with the team sheet and the squad. And I know, the Welsh FA have apologised and all this stuff. But I think it's madness, for a game of that magnitude to, Owen Beck was obviously in the main national team, the first team squad initially, and he went down to play with the 21s because it's such an important game. And then they can't play because of an admin error. But what I will say is, I know, look, of course, it's not good enough. It's unprofessional, and it's certainly cost them in the short term. And it may cause some issues. I think they still can technically make the playoffs, but it's certainly much more difficult now with that loss. And also, a lot of those players now, this is their last chance with the 21s because they're going to be too old, and they'll hopefully move into the first team. So, of course, it's an issue. Of course, it's frustrating. It's unprofessional. All of these things. But I'm not on board with people calling for people's jobs and stuff like that. Come on, we've got to be better than that. Yes, let the people who are in charge of that go and do their investigations and stuff like that, and they will do what they're going to do. But I think it's probably a sorry indictment of the way the world is, that you've got people calling for someone's job who's probably just a member of staff who's like everyone else, overworked and underpaid. It's just one of those things. It's just unfortunate that it's cost well, it certainly interfered in the tactics. You've got to think that, Matty Jones would have had everything in place from shapes and formations and tactics and all the rest of it based around those players being in the first year or in the first 11. So, of course, it's going to cause an issue, and they're very, very good players to boot. So it's problematic. Hopefully the 21s can recover and are still able to at least make, the playoffs, but it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. Isn't it really interesting? Like Evan James says there, why aren't these Welsh youngsters playing in the first team for Cardiff? And I think this is something that we've talked about a lot since, not even pre-season, like since the end of last season, we were calling for Errol Bullock to play some of these youngsters, give them a bit of an opportunity towards the end of the season. It came a bit late with some of them. And then, you go through the pre-season and again, they impress and they don't seem to get much time. And it does baffle you because other teams seem to have a more direct pathway from the 21s and the development and the 18s to the first team. And they give the young players the opportunity to go in the first team. They might fail, they might make mistakes, but that's what young players do. But you're never going to know if they're good enough if you never give them a chance. But anyway, I've flitted onto Cardiff a little bit. And as Paul says here, he said it's such an important game for us. We had a chance to qualify, and it was on the brink of history, mate. We've talked about it a couple of times recently, on the brink of history. So it certainly leaves a bitter taste. That's all but gone, or certainly a massive roadblock to it for something that was not done on the pitch. It's a big issue, and I understand people being frustrated and angry and all the rest of it because it ultimately is unprofessional. That's just the way it is. Like, let's call it what it is. It's unprofessional, and it's not something that you'd expect at that level. And I know people will use it as a stick to beat, the Welsh FA or whoever it is that they don't think should be there or don't like it. Yeah, Welsh FA. But as overall organisation, it shouldn't have happened. And unfortunately, that under-21 side has kind of been thrown into turmoil right on the brink of kickoff, having prepared with a certain amount of players or certain personnel, and then all of a sudden they've got to prepare not only different tactics, shapes, all the rest of it, set pieces, but they've missing those vital personnel. So I think it's disappointing. Sloper Rhodes with the question: Makaleli now or Risa till January? Apparently, like I said the other day, I've decided to be a bit more careful with my words because more and more people are watching the stuff, and ultimately, I hear lots of stuff. Some of it's good, some of it's some of it's super reliable, some of it's not, and I don't know. I don't want to become clickbaity myself. If you were asking me what I would do with all the current options that I see that are realistically possible for Cardiff City's next manager, it is my opinion that the best route would be Risa until January and then Slaven Bilic in January. That would be my choice at the moment. Because I think in the short term, Omar Risa has got a team play and he's got them together. And yes, he made a tactical error against Bristol. But they playing even in the whole game, we played way better than we played all season in an attacking sense. He will learn as he's going along, as all young managers do. And everyone does. Everyone makes mistakes, and as long as you learn from those mistakes. Now, of course, if he makes the same mistake again, then that's a different conversation. Makaleli's a weird one, right? Because he might be excellent. I'm not saying anything against him. There you go. Jesus, sorry about that. My son decided to make as much noise as possible. So, like, Makaleli is a strange one. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if any young manager, including Omar Risa till January, is the right choice, because I believe that the fundamental problems that haven't been resolved at Cardiff City, I'm not sure that it's the right place for a young manager. I think we need someone who is experienced and is really capable of not just galvanizing the team together, which in fairness to Reece, he seems to have done, galvanizing the fan base with the club, because there's a lot of disjointed feelings and everyone's got an opinion, of course. I still think Steven Schumacher would have been a good choice, but I think he also falls into that where it's like, is he going to have the experience and the skill set to get everyone pulling in the right direction, implementing the way he wants to play, whilst also, stabilizing a club that's in a bit of turmoil? And what you do have to remember is, yes, there's loads and loads of time left. There's loads of time left this season. We could still make the playoffs. The squad is good enough. It's just whether the manager, whoever that is able to get them all doing what he wants to do and doing it the right way. It's such a big risk to go with like a Makaleli or even like a Giggs or someone like that. It's such a big risk, because look, I know phenomenal players, but the Championship is so different, and the Championship now is so different to what it was 10 years ago. Like, you look around the Championship now, the standard from top to bottom is very good. A lot of teams playing with younger players with a little bit of experience sprinkled in with it. It's a very, very difficult league to come in. And I think if you haven't got that experience, it is difficult. And that's why, for me, and again, this is only my personal opinion, that's why I think when I look at all the candidates that I see, I think Slaven Bilic ticks the most boxes. He's got Championship experience as a manager. He's a good tactically speaking manager. He's adaptive. He likes to play with young players, which I think for me is a big thing. I want a manager who's going to come in and he's going to utilize this current crop of really good young players that Cardiff have got coming through. So for me, he ticks the most boxes. Now, there's other managers who tick quite a few boxes or boxes, but it's what the club's looking for. Ultimately, it's also my opinion that until Cardiff City Football Club has football people making the football decisions and business people making the business decisions, we're going to kind of go around in this cycle until eventually we find like a decent place or a decent manager, or we're just a bit lucky and it clicks into place and everything goes well. Otherwise, I think we're destined to repeat the cycle of every 18 months or whatever. And it's difficult because I'm not entirely sure what the right decision is. But what I do know is Cardiff have a good squad. On paper, Cardiff squad is pretty good. Yes, we're probably lacking in one or two areas, but we also have a crop of youngsters who are coming through who are very, very good and itching to be given an opportunity to show what they can do. Now, I'm not saying that they'll be like the savior and they'll be suddenly will be amazing. But what I'm saying is, if you give them a chance, then you're going to know. And, some players, they don't look ready at development level. And then when they play at first team level, it just clicks for them and they do, loads better than they're expected to. Other players, you think from a young age, they're going to be a star. They're going to be a star. But then when they play full men's football at the first team, they struggle a little bit, especially in the Championship where it's so difficult. But you're never going to know if you don't try. So I will flip back to Cardiff in a minute. Towards the end of the show, we'll go back to that because I want to talk about some of the managerial sort of options, if you like. I want to talk a little bit about the Wales game. So obviously the first half against Iceland, outstanding. Genuinely one of the best halves of football I've enjoyed watching Wales, certainly for a while. Some excellent football movement. Great to see. Someone's got hair in my mouth. Don't know how, because I've barely got any. Great to see Nico Williams back to his best. Like, particularly in that first half, I thought he was defensively solid. Got two great balls, or actually I think there was maybe three, like from that left-hand side over the top. Beautiful. Harry Wilson coming into his own and showing why he's been in such good form for Fulham. And he's such an important player for Wales after so many years of sometimes being the one who would maybe be dropped or rotated. Like, he's really come to the fold under Craig Bellamy, and I'm super happy for him. I thought Kiefer Moore in the first half was really good, did his job really well. Bit of an unsung hero in what he was doing by the link up and the creating space for other people. It's just unfortunate the second half, what we really lacked was like that bit of experience in the middle of the pitch. You could see that some of those young players, they were getting frustrated. They were a bit all over the place. They were losing a bit of discipline positionally. Obviously had a barrage of yellow cards. Unfortunately, I would assume Joe Allen wasn't fit to play, because I think that's probably what he was brought into, was to be that experienced head. And if you think in the second half, that's exactly what we could have done with was an experience of like a Joe Allen to just sit in front of a defence next to Jordan James or whoever and just calm everything down, keep hold of the ball. And Wales just, and look, you've got to give credit to Iceland as well. Iceland were excellent in the second half. They pressed so well. They didn't give Wales a second. And sometimes, you know, you can be good, you can be well organised, you can be exciting, all the rest of it. But the other team has a say in it as well. And it's not the end of the world. I said to Harry in the Welsh podcast that we do, Cymru Am Build podcast, which is on the 2 Wednesdays of every international break. So the next episode will be this coming Wednesday. I said to him, would you be happy with 4 points from these 2 games, which means we've taken 8 from the first 4? And he was like, yeah, but I'd also be a little bit disappointed because we've been so impressive under Craig Bellamy. And of course, when you go in at 2-0 half-time against Iceland away from home, then you're just thinking, right, be compact, be nice and difficult to break down, and just hit them on the break, because the gaps will come. Obviously, Brennan Johnson coming off is one weapon going forward. And I thought the subs were a little bit weird. The attacking subs were a little bit weird. When you had like Lewis Kumas and Mark Harris on the bench, both bang on in form, I think it was weird that they were not the options. Like Wes Burns, with the greatest respect to him, did not have a good half of football. And I just felt like maybe if Brennan was coming off, either Harris or Kumas maybe would have made more sense. But it is what it is. I think ultimately, like, one of the things which cost us in the second half is probably till Kabanga came on, defensively, we were very far apart. Like, we weren't, like, I expected us to be very compact, close together, close all the spaces, kind of force them out wide if they were going to go or go long. And we just, it was, of course, it's disappointing, isn't it, when you're 2-0 up. But look, we've got to put it behind them as a young team. You've got to go into that Montenegro game now on Monday, and you've got to get it right. No slip ups, and there's players out, there's players banned, so you've got to make sure. Personally, if I was the manager, I'd be looking at bringing in your Ruben Colwells, your Owen Becks from the under-21s. Now, I get it because they've only got like a friendly, the 21s. So anyone who you think might be a potential option off the bench or a starter, the more firepower, the more creativity that you can have on the bench, just in case. Now, of course, everyone home game against Montenegro, we have to be expecting to win our home games. Or we have to go in with the mentality that we're going to win our home games. But equally, that second half performance with players out as well, I think we need to make sure we've got as much firepower on the bench as possible. So for me, I'm taking all of them, if I like as many of them as I can. In terms of the team for that game, I'm not 100% sure on all of the different players are banned. I know Jordan James is out, and he's obviously Ampadu, Dan James, and Ramsey. I don't know if Joe Allen will be fit enough to play this game. Maybe he plays half, or he plays a bit, or if he's not going to feature at all. If he doesn't feature at all, it'd be a bit weird that they called him up. But I could see a thing where he starts in the middle and just gets everyone nice and calm. But I would like to see David Brooks be in there. Josh Sheenan, I quite like as well. But we've got to get goals, of course. So you've got to look at the best options. Will he retain Kiefer Moore up front? Will he revert back to a more of a false nine with pacey players around him? I'm not sure. I'd expect Sorba Thomas and Harry Wilson to retain their places. And then it comes down to who comes in for Jordan James and is Brennan Johnson suspended as well, I think, isn't he? So do you go with I think Mark Harris deserves a chance. He's banging in the goals for fun, can play wide, can play through the middle. I wouldn't be disappointed if we went with, some sort of false nine thing with Harry Wilson and then had 3 in Sorba Thomas, Lewis Kumas and Mark Harris behind him, but with him dropping in and then being the pace that runs in behind. But I don't know. It'd be interesting what Craig Bellamy comes up with. I'd like to see Sheenan in there because I think he gives you the legs. Thought Ollie Cooper did all right, actually, the other day. He did tire a little bit. I also wouldn't be against seeing Cabango come into the middle of the centre-back pairing, whether that would mean Nico Williams reverting back to the right and then Ben Davies going out to left-back. Don't think that's the worst idea away from at home, sorry. Prediction-wise, I do think Wales will get the win, but to lose to all, we already had, Ramsey, Dan James out, to have, Jordan James added to that, Brennan Johnson, it's, of course, a blow. And that's why if it was me, I would be taking, some of the 21s who were in form to at least be on the bench. That's what I think anyway. But you guys let me know. What would you do? Would you include the likes of Owen Beck and Ruben Colwell? Because the 21s have only got like a pointless friendly anyway. So do you move the players who can really benefit you? So I mentioned, look, Connor Roberts coming back for an injury. I thought he was a bit poor the other night. So if I'm looking at it, I'd put Nico Williams out to the right, although I thought he did excellent on the left and was a real good creative outlet. I'd move him to the right. And then it's right, you go with Ben Davies as a centre-back or a left-back. You could bring Owen back in there. Home game, a game which you're going to be, a lot of possession on the front foot. Don't think that's the worst game to make his full sort of start and debut. And then you can play, I would like to see Ben Davies and Cabango as a pair, but, it's not me picking a team, of course. And there's a few options. And then it's who he goes with in the midfield and how he thinks is the best way to create chances. Is it by having Kiefer Moore as the focal point with legs around him? Or does he go more with the false nine sort of thing, which he did with Ramsey in the previous home game, which did work really well. We did create chances, we just didn't take them with leg, but you use maybe Harry Wilson as the false nine. So he's kind of dropping into the pockets. And then you have Sorba Thomas and Kumas or whoever it may be around him to be the legs. It'll certainly be interesting. Now, let me know what you would do with the system. Let me know which players you would bring in. Would you bring in the 21s and stuff like that? I'm genuinely interested. And what did you make of the Iceland game? Like the first half was so good and the second half was not. So it was, and this is what happens when you've got a young team. And this is something which I think Cardiff City fans need to bear in mind, is if we do start blooding these youngsters, right? We got this crop of youngsters. Everyone's really excited about it. If they start playing, they're going to be inconsistent. They're going to be a good game, a bad game, because they're young, they're learning, they're developing. Some of them are probably not ready to start week in, week out. So you've got to be patient with it. And I know the modern football fan is not patient. I get it. Like, we've all got an instant opinion and we've all got an avenue to voice that opinion. But I just hope that we'll, as fans, Cardiff City fans, will just be patient with this young crop, because I do hope they get an opportunity to really get some football now between now and the end of the season. But on Cardiff City, let's talk about this managerial situation, because it feels like it's very up in the air, and it feels, I see a lot of people saying how it's crazy and, oh, why are we letting it go on so long? But I think I agree that it needs to be sorted one way or another soon, but I also think that getting the right person is vital. And if they haven't been fully convinced by different people for whatever reason, whether they think, oh yeah, they might be all right, but I'm not sure, or whatever it may be, then they should take their time and they should make sure that whatever the decision, it's done for the right reasons, and everything like that. So look, there is names which have been linked with Cardiff, which I'd be happy with. There's also names which I'm not so happy with. As I've said, Slaven Bilic would be my preferred option. It seems at the moment that he is not available till January because he's on, I think it's gardening leave. He's got a contract basically from Saudi Arabia or the Far East somewhere, and it's a lot of money to be paid out for him to get out of that contract. So, Cardiff are not going to pay that. So either we wait for him till January or we go in a different direction. It is what it is. I know, it's tricky because I know, can Omar Risa maintain what he's had out the last couple of games till January? That's quite a long time. But maybe he's done enough that he deserves the opportunity to go till January, Paul Evans says, if we're going to hang on till January, which I hope we don't, I'd prefer we went for Tony Mowbray if he's well enough to be considered. Well, Tony Mowbray was my preferred option from the very start, but it's still my understanding that it's not going to happen because of his health and he's not ready to return to football anytime soon. So, unfortunately, that's not one that we can kind of is in the race, I guess, which is a shame because I think he's the perfect mix of experience, the way he likes to play football, as well as he likes to play with young players and he plays exciting football. My screen is freezing, so if you stop hearing me, certainly let me know straight away and I'll have to switch over to my phone. But Ruben Sellers is an interesting one. I think he did a tremendous job at Reading, considering all the kind of pressure that he's under, the constant things thrown his way. It's remarkable that he was able to kind of do the job that he was doing, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a tricky one, but I wouldn't be devastated if the club went with Ruben Sellers. I don't think it's the worst option by any means at all. He's not also my preferred option. So you should still be able to hear what he says. So much for trying to sort that out. Hi guys, I apologize, but I do not know what gone on with that. I'm going to just remove myself from the screen there. So yes, I don't know what happened there. Technical difficulties, apologies. It's the joys of the internet. So yeah, Ruben Sellers for me is not the worst choice. It's just it's really difficult because I think Cardiff is and I agree with what Paul Abandonado said the other week. The Cardiff job is a big job, and I think some managers might struggle with the attention and everything which comes with it. And the lack of football structure, as we've said so many times, above the management team is particularly difficult because I think that means that there's not someone who understands football, who's building the club and making those football decisions and pulling everything in the right direction. for the sake of repeating myself, I don't want to do that. And if you want to hear my all-out opinions, I've done a few videos on why I think we need it, and of course, we need a technical director, and we need someone who can guide the club on the football front, whilst other people guide it from the business point of view. You can't have, and until that happens, I believe that we're going to kind of go round and round and keep making these same mistakes. It was interesting because I saw a couple of people whose opinion I trust, who said they felt that getting a much more experienced manager for the rest of this season was the way to go, and then maybe moving in a different direction in the summer is a better thing. So, some of the names in that instance which were mentioned were like Sam Allardyce and David Moyes and people like that. They cost so much money that I think is incredibly unlikely. I would only really be on board with those types of names if there was a genuine plan. So like if they sort of said, right, this is our manager, Sam Allardyce, say, right, and he's here till the summer. In the meantime, between now and the summer, we as a club will endeavour to get the best possible manager in place. But to do that, we're going to also appoint a technical director or a director of football or whatever you want to call it. So in the summer, we will announce that team, and they will take the football club forward and get everyone playing and everyone singing off the same hymn sheet. And then going forward, the technical director or the director of football will control the football side. The board will control the business side, and we'll kind of all work together for the betterment of Cardiff City. That, to me, makes the most sense. And that is also the kind of structure that's in place at all the successful clubs around the world, really, but certainly, in the UK. That's the general consensus, because you don't want a football manager making your business decisions just as much as you don't want a businessman making your football decisions. You want experts in your field doing the right things, and it's a frustrating thing for sure. And it's one of those where until that change comes in, I just think we're destined to repeat the same mistakes. I hope it's not. Like Paul says there, it's another waste of a season for us fans. I disagree, mate, and I'll tell you why I disagree. Is there's so much time left in this season that the squad is decent, mate. Yes, we could do with a striker and this and that. But actually, if we continue to play how we played for the first hour or so, or certainly actually that 20-minute period straight after half time against Bristol, right? If you use that as how this team wants to play, or these players are capable of playing, moving the ball quick, lots of rotations, lots of players picking up pockets of space, Ruben Colwell in a free role, Robinson running in behind, Tanner going full tilt on one wing, El Ghazi being clever on the other wing. That can work. And then you've got your Chris Willocks and others, Kean Ashford's in for a game, people like this who can come in and do a really good job. Alex Robertson as well. Like, shout out to him. Darland's back now. Hopefully, the fitter he gets, he'll get up to full tilt. Same with Will Fish and people like that. The squad is decent. I said the other day about how we could put out in about 18 months' time, we could put out like a spine of under 25s, from Isaac Davis to Ruben Colwell, Joel Colwell, Alex Robertson, Fish, Darland, and then obviously the keeper being more experienced. But then you've also got like Tanner, Pacquiao, Giles, all these different players who are young and hungry. Like, the squad is good, and there's so much time left that I don't think this season is a write-off, and I don't think any manager coming in with his salt should be looking at it and going, "Oh, I don't want to." There shouldn't be a case of we need to be saved from relegation. This should be a case of there's 30 plus games left. There's a good squad here. Maybe in January we can do a bit of wheeling and dealing to get things up and running a bit better. and then go from there, because this season is not over. But it's of course, as fans, you feel beaten down, don't you? And of course I'm going to go through some of the comments now. Just before I do, I'm going to try and switch back to my computer off my phone, because it's wireless on my phone and the connection's not as good. So bear with me just 2 seconds, okay? We'll see what's cooking. Let's see how that is. So that should be a little bit better. Let's just get off that. Right. So, do tell me if you can't hear me and there's any issues with the audio and stuff like that. It's difficult, right? Because I understand people feeling like Steve's just put in there. Any news, mate, feeling so deflated by the way the club's run. I get it, mate. I really do. But I also again, like, people can disagree with me, no problem with that at all. But to me, I'd rather them take their time and get the right person. At the moment, Omar Risa has at the very least got us playing more attacking football, so we're creating chances. Against Bristol, we should have won comfortably because we created 3-4 clear-cut chances. That's not on the manager to take those. That's on the players on the pitch are going to take those chances. Now, as good as Ruben Colwell was against Bristol until the changes were made, he's got to take that chance. Ollie Tanner, as good as his goal was and as good as he played, he's got to take that second chance. That's not on the manager. That's not on the way the clubs run. That's on the players on the pitch. And I stand by that the squad is good enough to get up this league. Just got to put a bit of a run together and build a bit of confidence. You can see they're already playing with a bit more confidence just by the way they're playing. But I understand why people are frustrated, and I understand why people are angry, and I understand why people want the board out and all this. Like, I don't disagree with any of that, because for me, and I don't want to repeat myself because I know that I've just seen a few different names in the chat. I've just talked about it. Like, until we do have football people making football decisions, we're destined to repeat it. It's just one of those things. But and we're all used to the same kind of thing, just round and round and round. But let's go to some of the comments and let's see what the people are saying. Paul Howells, in reference to the under-21, says, I feel really sorry for Matty Jones. He's worked wonders with that set of players. Yeah, he deserved better, mate. He really did. It was a shambles, to be fair. Sloper Road Blues said Makelele could either go like Torre at Wigan or Company at Burnley. There's no in between. And that's and going back to the Makelele thing, that's what I was saying. Like, it's a massive risk, isn't it? And when you're bottom of the league, you've started the season badly, so badly that you've sacked your manager. Do you go with a risk? Like a real risk? And that's my question. Now, I would assume that they will have to weigh up through their advisors and this, that, and the other. What's the biggest risk? Is it bringing in Makelele? Is it bringing in Giggs or whoever? All these names would be mentioned now. Or is it less of a risk to keep Reese till January and then bring in Slaven Bilic? Like, what's the bigger risk? What's better for the team? What's better for the football club? At the moment, the players are playing for Reese. Will they still be playing for him in a month? You know, if he makes another couple of sort of errors relating to his inexperience as a manager, will they get fed up? And will they, we've seen already that, when they get fed up with managers, maybe that there's frustration there. So they're human beings at the end of the day. Evan James says, remember both Southampton games? It doesn't take a genius manager to figure out where to go from there. I 100% agree with you, mate. That Southampton League game last year, that should have been the trigger point for Cardiff City, the football club, the coaching staff, whoever, to go, do you know what? We've got a wicked crop of players coming. And Giles, Conte, Ashford, Colwell, they all came on and made a difference in a big game. They revitalized the older players like your Gutases and your Rawls around them. They gave them legs, and we played a good Southampton team off the park in that second half with those players. But then suddenly they're not ready to be considered at all. Yet every time we play in the EFL Cup and they play, we look by far more functional. We create more chances. Now, I'm not saying like play all 11, just chuck in the 21s, but I'm saying let's integrate them. Let's use them. there's been games where I think we could have used 2 young wing backs this season, as put K Pacquiao and Giles in there, bit of experience as a back three, and then go and create chances. There's been many a game where I felt that having Reindorf on the bench makes much more sense than having Mate or Kanga on the bench, because I think at least when Reindorf comes on, he'll run around, he'll press, he will have that unbridled sort of raw energy that young players seem to have. Like, I'm not sure I've seen Kanga break out into a sprint yet. And I'm one of the ones who still thinks he might come good. But I think his body language and his work rate has been shocking. He doesn't look like a player. Like, with strikers, they obviously thrive off goals and chances. Of course they do. And I said before, like, we could have Ronaldo 9 in his prime and he would have looked average at the start of this season because we created nothing. But we are creating chances now. But whenever Kanga's come on, those chances seem to dry up. And for me, he doesn't look like someone who's working hard to create a chance or to make something happen out of the blue, to dispossess a player when they've held onto the ball too long. Or, like, for instance, in a team that presses, which under Risa, we've been much better at pressing. But one of the trigger points to press is a bad touch or a heavy touch by the defender. And then obviously the pressing unit goes. Now, if the main or the central figure in that press is your centre forward, which is not always, it can sometimes be the 10. But if it's the centre forward, i.e. when Kanga's there, and the rest go, but he kind of half goes, it creates an issue. And in my opinion, there's other players there who look like they're offering a bit more off the bench. People can disagree, and I know Martin, who I mentioned earlier on about when I was talking about the 21s, he is much more, he watches these guys week in, week out, and he says he doesn't think Reindorf's ready. But sometimes, as I said, sometimes players can not look ready, and then when you put them in, they just click and away they go, and they never look back. Sometimes players you can be rated since the age of 10, and they're the next big thing. And then as they get up to the men's football, they struggle. It's kind of just one of those things. Paul says, I read that one. It said if we hang on until January, he'd prefer Mowbray. Evan says youngsters can't do any worse than the first team. I have to bear with me. I'm losing my voice a little bit. My boy's had tonsillitis. I think he might have given it to me. Paul says Reset hasn't been too bad. He's done better than I thought. Yes, he's inexperienced, but till Christmas, I don't know. It's a big gamble. Maybe too much of a gamble. Maybe not. I think a big part of that, mate, comes down to at the moment he's got that the squad is united, or more united than it was a month ago or 2 months ago. So can he maintain that till Christmas? Can he maintain that till January? And then what happens, this is the other thing, is, right, what if the plan is, say the plan is reset till January, and then when the Slaven Village is available, want Slaven Village. What if Omar Risa goes unbeaten till January? Like, there's all sorts of issues then, because the players who, if they haven't lost a game since the start of October, do they want to change a manager, even though it was planned? What if the team is playing one way from now till January, and then when Slaven Village or whoever came in, he wants to completely play a different way? Does he have any input before January? Does he say, is he allowed to say to Risa or to the football club through intermediaries, like, I would like to see, can you play K Pacquiao more, or I think Ruben can do a good job as a false nine, but whatever. Like, does he have any input? Because obviously it will be Risa who would get the blame if these things don't work. There's all sorts of complications. And as I say, I think the club will have to weigh up what's the bigger gamble. If they want Bilic, they've either got to pay it, whatever it is, to get him out of his contract that he's got, or they've got to wait till January. They've got to wait till January. They've got a decision to make. Or do they look to the other options? I really like Steven Schumacher. I think he's an excellent manager. And he is someone who I feel like can be quite an exciting manager and someone who could take the club forward. I'm just not sure if now is the right time to bring him in and bring him, because I don't think we're going to suddenly bring in a manager and make changes off the pitch that would allow him to take the club forward. Like I did a video the other week saying that I think that Cardiff should do everything they possibly can to get Brian Barry Murphy involved at the club, whether it's as a technical director, a coach, assistant manager, maybe even the manager. But is it the right time now? I mean, it might be, because as we've talked about many times on this show, sometimes a manager or a player or a coach, they can be at one club and they look useless, but then they move somewhere else and everything just clicks into place. Might be that their family's more settled or their family's closer. They might like the city, the fans, everything just clicks. Look at Nathan Jones. At Luton, everything went right for him. Everything clicked. But whenever he's made that step away, things haven't quite gone as well. Southampton, Stoke, and then Charlton. He's, not all the Charlton fans are massively happy with him. I mentioned Ruben Sellers earlier. Done a phenomenal job under like crazy circumstances. But I know for a fact that not all the players who have played under him have enjoyed it. Now, is that like not sour grapes, but is that because they weren't picked or they've left, or is it because he's a young manager who does things differently? Like, these are all things that have to be weighed up when appointing a manager. It's not just, he's a good manager, he'll be good there. We've already seen that managers who can do all right elsewhere, they don't always do well here. So it's a tricky one. James says, I thought the transfers under Bullet were impressive, but that could be down to Bullet's connections. Well, let me tell you something, James, right? I agree with you. Particularly this past summer just gone, I thought the way the club moved in the transfer market was refreshing. We were getting deals done quick, efficiently, and we were getting quality footballers in. And they were kind of a good mix of young and experienced. I was impressed. I said it at the time. I was impressed. And you know what I thought? I thought that there was already someone with like a football director of football, whatever. I thought they may have already been involved and they'd announce it, start of the season or whatever, because that we were moving so differently to how we normally move. Now, is that because of Errol Bullett's connections? Is that because of Errol Bullet? Is that because we were just a bit more organised and they already had a plan in place? So as soon as Errol Bullet signed his contract, they were able to move quickly because they'd already had those discussions at the end of last season. That's also a possibility. But I did think at the time, because it was so un-Cardiff-like, that maybe there was something going on. It's an interesting thing, though, because I agree. I thought the window was good. Evan says, I think it's more the players weren't playing for Errol Bullet. I definitely think there's an element of that the players weren't playing for Errol Bullet and now they're playing for Omar Risa. But whatever the reasoning behind that, and I don't know what those reasons are, is they are playing for Omar Risa at the moment. Is that like a new manager bounce where Bullet's gone, they didn't like him as a group, and now he's gone, they can they feel better. They feel like they can express themselves a bit more on the football pitch, sort of thing. It's so difficult to work it out. Is it a new manager bounce? Like, is it going to kind of fall off a cliff in a couple of games? We won't know unless he gets that opportunity. And I'm not saying that it's the right thing to keep Risa till January. I'm kind of torn on it because I do think Slaven Bilic, of all the candidates I've looked at, I think he ticks the most boxes. But like, Omar Risa till January is a risk. But is it more of a risk than bringing in Claude Makelele as manager? Is it more of a risk than bringing Ruben Sellers or Ryan Giggs or whoever, like any of the other candidates, Brian Barry Murphy or whoever? Like, what's more of a risk? What's most likely to work for Cardiff City in the current state? What's going to work best with this squad at the moment? Are they happy with Omar Risa? If the squad is happy under Risa, and that means they're going to play for him. Now, could the club give him some help? Could we give him a really experienced coach that he can bounce ideas off and talk through things with? That's another option, I guess, is to give him some support until January. Excuse me. Paul says the thing is, you're right, but we've been pillaged for too long. We deserve better choices. Yeah, no, 100%, mate. As fans, I wish we could be heard more, but it feels like even the fab and these things, they all feel like they're kind of lip service without making a difference. And that's not a criticism of the people who do those things, because they are trying their very best to make fundamental changes in the way the club deals with fans. My problem is the relationship between the club and the fans should be better, and I don't think it's that difficult to fix. Just like I don't think it's that difficult to put a proper football structure in place. But I'm not the one who makes the decisions. And the other thing to bear in mind is the people that get all the grief, whoever it is, like Steve Bordy, Kenneth Cho, Mehmet Dalman, yes, they make some decisions, but ultimately they're not in power. They don't make the decisions. They'll give their opinion, and then the man at the top makes the decisions. Simple as that. And until he either changes his opinion on a football structure or sells up, I don't think anything's going to change. Yeah, Ryan Lowe is an interesting one. He's an interesting one. He is. I do quite like him. But again, you got to weigh. It's like weighing up all the risks. Let me put this to the chat. There's like 150 odd people watching, right? What would, if you were in charge now, like who would be the next manager of Cardiff City? What would you do? And that can be wait till January. That can be whoever. Like, what would you do? Let's have a look at some of these comments in the meantime. Evan says, I'm just used to patterns with Tan. Hire short term, no director, still poor run of games, fire manager, repeat. Yeah. And I think, again, saying like the lack of football structure or the lack of football people making those football decisions means that you are going to just constantly repeat it because there's no structure in place above the manager. It's a tale as old as time at the moment. Steve says, I agree, players need to become more clinical. It's lack of confidence. Yeah, of course. It's going to take a bit of time for them to build up confidence because the first few games were brutal. I think they can take confidence from the Millwall game. I think they can definitely take confidence from the Bristol game because the way we played in the start of that second half, like most teams would have struggled with us. I think you can take confidence from the fact that I think since Ruben Colwell's been starting games in the 10, he's looked confident and he's running games in a creative sense. Got to build on that. Got to take our chances. Steve also says if Bilic is announced as coming in January, the players might down tools till then. The problem is, mate, is I get what you're saying, but also any manager who was going to come in January with Bilic or someone else, they will be watching everything like a hawk. And if they see players with that sort of attitude, they're not going to get the opportunities when he comes in, are they? It's a difficult one. I do accept what you're saying. It's obviously a chance. Sloper Road Blue says, after Ryan Lowe bigging us up live on Sky, why not go for him? Clearly sees we've got a very good youth system too. I don't think he's the worst choice. Steve says Reindorf is pure raw tenacity. Yeah, I like him, man. I like him. Kanga plays like he's 45, says Evan. Yeah. The Fisherman, welcome, mate. Says, I think we need a manager that's done something at a club. Someone the players can look and know what they've been successful. Yes, I tend to agree with that. Or certainly they need like a reputation. Because I think there's some excellent coaches out there that the players will be more aware of than the fans. and I'm not, by the way, I'm not linking this person to the job. I'm just using them as an example of that. For instance, Jody Morris is one of the most highly rated coaches in the country, like by the top players and managers and people like that. And I think if he was linked with a job, the majority of Cardiff fans would be like, "What the hell?" But players might be like, "He's a real good coach," because his reputation is so good. Yeah. So I'm going to go to what Paul says now. So Paul says the hierarchy at the club apparently considered the initial list of candidates to be underwhelming. If that really is true, why do you think that is? Well, I would imagine, purely hypothetical, of course, that list of candidates came from a certain place, a certain person, whatever, and then maybe, just maybe, that their extensive knowledge of football isn't quite as extensive as maybe they thought it was. I don't know. It's who knows, mate. There's no way to tell. But if you were for hypothetically reasons, and again, it's just a guess. But if it was the same person who maybe appointed people like Trollope and Slade and people like this, then maybe, I don't know. Read into that what you will, I guess. Evan says, if Risa is on an unbeaten run, then I would keep him, obviously, but that's a good problem to have. I'd rather have that than the other way around. Yeah, of course, mate. 100%. Jeff saying CO playing immense again tonight against Ireland. Yeah, he was excellent against England as well, mate. And I'll tell you something, mate. I watched him and I saw a little bit just now against Ireland. I still think that for some games he's the best option alongside Alex Robertson. Some games Joe Ralls would be the best option, but I think we've got to utilise Siopas's skill set. I think he's got something to offer. Steve says purely for what he did against Bristol, it's too much risk to keep Risa till January. He's not ready. See, I understand it. I see it. Like, I understand why people are saying that, because it was like a real bad error. Like, we should have put that game to bed. But if we'd taken the two chances that we had straight after the goal we scored, so we were 3-0 up at that point, then I could understand it. But we were all over. The thing which I don't understand with it is we were all over Bristol. We were creating clear-cut chances. Their crowd had turned on the team. They were booing the team. And we gave them all the momentum. We gave them a foot back in the game by reverting to those tactics. But everyone learns from their mistakes. And if you don't learn from your mistakes, then you'll soon be gone. But, he's a young manager, and I think he will learn from that. I really do think he would learn from that. Even if he's only in charge for a couple more games or one more game, I still think he would learn from that. Anything is a massive risk because, and that's what Jeff's just said there, anything apart from Risa is a massive risk. Because what you've got to think is these players are playing for him at the moment, but then will they have lost a bit of faith from that decision in that Bristol game? But without that, he's definitely playing there. They're playing for him at the moment. Jonathan Davis makes a great point. He says, Ryan Lowe and Gary Rowett sounded very interested, but my favourite would be Gus Poyet, who doesn't seem under consideration, unfortunately. Yeah, I said Gary Rowett. I quite like him, but I like the way he manages or plays football, should I say. Ryan Lowe's another one who I think would be pretty good. Steve says anyone from Schumacher, Lowe, or Nathan Jones will push us forward. See, I think as much as I quite like the idea of Nathan Jones from a purely passionate point of view, and I feel like he's someone who will get that feeling that I had when Malky used to do the fist pump and back in the day with Eddie May and Lenny Lawrence, and you feel like a connection to the team and the manager. I think he gives that. But I think Nathan Jones is a risk because whenever he's been anywhere but Luton, he's kind of underwhelmed a little bit. And I'm not sure about him. Schumacher, I think, is a real good manager. And I think out of those young managers, I think Schumacher and Lowe are like the less riskier options of these kind of young managers. But I'm trying to find a comment. Someone put in something about Paul said Slaven Bilic might want his own players, but anyone who comes in has got to be got to understand that we're very unlikely to bring in players in January. We've got a massive squad, so they'll probably have to sell to buy or to bring players in anyway. Paul says he thinks that the best candidate is experienced at building a squad and will need to build as at least 8 or 9 players are out of contract in 2025. Does anyone have a list of those players like offhand now? If you do, quickly send them in because I've only got like about three minutes left. But be interesting. Evan James said I would give it till Risa till the end of the season with Brian Barry Murphy as his assistant. Get a director of football and make it a must-have at least 2 youth players on the bench at every league game. That's really interesting. I think we should get Brian Barry Murphy into Cardiff City's system in some way, shape, or form, because I think he'd be a game changer for the club overall. Evan also says there's more than enough quality in that squad if you let them play more freely. No nonsense. Defense, creative midfield, and attacking in the final third. Steve says, totally agree, mate, Risa, but we can't afford to carry a manager that's cutting his teeth. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? But then, thank you, Paul. Players out of contract: Aaron Ramsey, Isaac Davis, Kieran Evans, Callum Robinson, O'Dowda, Rawls, Alnwick, Keanu Tete, Gael Ghazi. So there's a lot of players out of contract. But let me put something to you as a hypothetical, and I'm not criticizing any of those players, by the way. But let's just throw a hypothetical at you. Let's say we re-signed Isaac Davis and Jack Alnwick, right? But we let the majority of those other players go on a free. And then we focused on the young players coming through and add in players like Alex Robertson, like good young players who have already played first team football and got a bit of experience, and then go with that. That might be how we rebuild around youth. Just a hypothetical for you to mull over until tomorrow evening. Paul says, thanks for answering my question. My theory is that exciting, good managers wouldn't touch Cardiff with a barge ball. That I disagree with, mate, because I think you can tell by the likes of Lowe and Rowett and others throwing their hat in the ring, Makaleli throwing their hat in the ring quite publicly, that people want the job. So it goes to show that even with all the mess off the field, like the job is still interesting to people. The Fisherman says, and we'll finish on this, guys. The Fisherman says they're playing for Risa now. If we lost 3 in a row, the doubts would creep in amongst the players. Again, we need someone the players know can walk the walk. Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. But what I'll say is I will try and gather as much information as I can over the next couple of days. And I'm going to put a video out on the manager situation. And I'll probably pick the 3 most likely candidates from what I'm hearing. And then we'll kind of weigh them up and we'll go like some pros and cons and all the rest of it. Cardiff City phone in. I'm not sure if there is one tomorrow because it's an international break. But if there's not, I might do a watch along for the Wales game. Although I won't because I'm going to go. So ignore that. I'll put something up. I'll get some content out tomorrow. I might put that video up about Ruben Colwell because that's quite an interesting one. Put that out about like 6 o'clock before the game. And I'm sure I might do a reaction to the game as well after when I'm on my way home. But look, guys, I appreciate you all interacting. I appreciate you all having your say. We're all passionate about it. We all want the decision made, but we all want the right decision. It's difficult. It's difficult. Apologies for that technical little thing in the middle. I don't know what was going on with my streaming software, but we're all good. We're all good. Only problem is that because of that technical aspect, I got to edit this now to take it out for the radio version. But there we go. Guys, it's a pleasure. We'll be back this week. Please make sure you subscribe. Please spread the word. Tell all your Cardiff City friends. Cardiff City content 7 days a week by fans, for fans, in a bit.